Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we're tackling a topic that usually makes people just instantly groan, navigating the DMV to get a new ID. But look, I have some good news for you. We're not going to treat the Tennessee Real ID process like some kind of bureaucratic nightmare. Instead, I want you to look at this as a pretty straightforward, step-by-step quest to just kind of level up your driver's license to its ultimate, federally approved form. By the time we wrap up this explainer, you are going to have the exact playbook you need to just absolutely breeze right through this whole process. So let me start by asking you a really important question. Are you actually ready to fly? Because with upcoming federal travel enforcement changes, the days of just tossing your standard state ID in your bag and sailing through airport security, yeah, those days are coming to an end. This explainer is going to give you total peace of mind so you can navigate those federal checkpoints seamlessly, no anxiety, no last-minute scrambling, just smooth traveling. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll cover what a real ID actually is, how to gather your required documents, where and how to apply, the fees and processing times, and then we'll finish up by busting some common myths in our FAQ section. Okay, let's dive into section 1. What exactly is a real ID? So what is the big deal with this thing? Well, it's a new federal security standard for state-issued IDs, and it was created to improve the reliability of driver's licenses nationwide. But let's clear something up right off the bat, because there's a lot of confusion out there. Getting one is actually optional in Tennessee. Your standard license is still perfectly legal for driving, voting, banking, buying restricted goods, you name it. However, once full federal enforcement kicks in, you will absolutely need a real ID, or a valid alternative like a U.S. passport, for what they call federal uses. That means boarding federally regulated domestic flights, walking onto secure military bases, or, visiting a nuclear power plant. Now, you might be thinking, wait, do I already have one of these in my wallets? Well, just take a look at your physical card. A real ID will have a very specific visual indicator on it. You're looking for a gold or black circle with a white star right inside it, up in the upper right-hand corner. If you don't have that star, your standard ID is literally going to say Not for Real ID Act purposes printed right on it. And if you try to hand that standard ID to a TSA agent after enforcement begins, you could face secondary screening, massive delays, or just flat out get turned away from your flight. Nobody wants that. Moving on to section 2, gathering your required documents. Listen closely, because this is the absolute most crucial phase of this entire journey. It all comes down to gathering your documents. Think of it like assembling the ultimate, foolproof paperwork loadout. This is where most people get tripped up, but you won't. Having a structured checklist is the secret to getting in and out of the Driver Services Center on your very first try. You have to satisfy what we call the 4 document pillars. 1 proof of identity and citizenship, 1 proof of your social security number, 2 proofs of Tennessee residency, and if your legal name has changed over your lifetime, your name bridging documents. So let's break down those first 2 pillars. For your identity and citizenship, something like an unexpired U.S. passport or a certified state-issued birth certificate works perfectly. For your social security number, your original social security card or a W-2 issued within the last 12 months are great choices. But hey, hear me very clearly on this one. Photocopies are never, ever accepted. You can't just show them a picture on your phone. You have to bring the original physical documents or certified copies with those raised seals. For sure, do not forget that part. All right, next up is Tennessee residency. You actually need 2 distinct proofs for this one. A current utility bill, a mailed bank statement, or a fully executed lease are all solid options, but they have to be current, usually dated within the last 4 months. And here is a massive trap that catches so many people off guard. It's the non-overlapping employer rule. So say you decide to use a W-2 to prove your social security number and a payroll check stub to prove your residency. Well, they cannot originate from the exact same employer. You really got to mix and match your documents. And that brings us to the name bridge. I literally cannot emphasize this requirement heavily enough. If the name on your current driver's license doesn't exactly match the name on your birth certificate, you have to bring original, certified court documents that explain why. If you've been married, divorced, and then married again, you have to bring the first marriage certificate, the divorce decree, and the second marriage certificate. It's like a chain. It has to be continuous. Skipping even a single link in your name history will get you instantly rejected at the desk, so double check those names. All right, section 3, where and how to apply. Okay, so you have your documents flawlessly assembled. Federal law actually strictly requires that your very first real ID application be done in person just so they can physically verify and scan your documents. But I'm going to give you a massive shortcut. Step 1, use the state's TN e-Services online portal. You can upload photos of your documents and get them pre-approved right from your couch. Step 2, schedule an in-person appointment. Step 3, show up with your physical originals. Oh, and pro tip, try booking your visit mid-morning on a Tuesday or Wednesday. It really helps you avoid those worst crowd rushes and long wait times.
Now, where do you actually need to go? It kind of depends on your current status. If you're a brand new resident or getting your first ever Tennessee license, you absolutely must go to a state-operated driver services center. Now, if you already hold a standard Tennessee license and you just want to upgrade to a real ID, you can actually hit up a participating county clerk's office. Just a heads up though, county clerks usually charge an extra $4 local processing fee. And a quick warning about those self-service renewal kiosks you see around town. They absolutely cannot process initial Real ID applications. They just don't have the hardware to do the strict document scanning that the federal government requires.
Which brings us to Section 4, Fees and Processing Times.
Let's talk money and logistics. The state doesn't punish you for upgrading. If you do it during your normal license renewal cycle, it just costs the standard 8-year renewal fee, which is about $28 for a regular Class D license. But if your license isn't expiring anytime soon and you just want to upgrade mid-cycle, you'll have to pay a duplicate license fee. At a state center, that runs about $8 to $12. At a county clerk, it's $12 to $16 because of that $4 municipal surcharge we just talked about. Now let's look at your timeline so you can plan this out. On day 1, you go in and do your application. The examiner is going to take your old license, snap a new photo, and hand you a temporary paper interim ID. Then, your permanent, hard plastic real ID is actually manufactured at a secure, centralized facility and mailed to you through the Postal Service. That delivery usually takes anywhere from 10 to 20 days. Which means, and I cannot stress this enough, whatever you do not wait until the week before your big flight to apply. And that leads me to a really critical caveat you have got to hammer into your brain. That temporary paper ID you walk out of the Driver Services Center with, it is not recognized by the TSA. A piece of paper is simply not going to get you past airport security. You must have that permanent, hard plastic card in your hand before you head to the airport. No exceptions. Finally, let's get into Section 5, FAQs, myths, and a few final tips. All right, home stretch here. It's time to bust a few prevalent myths. Because this is a federal requirement, a lot of people naturally get a bit anxious and ask, wait, is there a tracking microchip inside the card? Is there some giant centralized federal database monitoring my every move? Let me just go ahead and put your mind completely at ease here. No, there are absolutely no electronic tracking microchips or wireless transmitters inside a Tennessee Real ID. None. Furthermore, there's no massive federal database holding all your data. Your biometric and demographic information stays right where it always has, securely stored within Tennessee's existing state-level driver record systems. That's it. But here is the ultimate what-if scenario for those of us who, might procrastinate a little bit past that federal enforcement date. Say you show up to the airport, bags are packed, and you hand the TSA agent your standard, non-compliant ID. What actually happens? Do they just point you to the exit and send you home? Well, not necessarily, but it is going to cost you time, stress, and frankly, money. The TSA has set up this thing called the TSA Confirm ID program for travelers without compliant IDs. You'll get pulled into secondary screening, and right there at the checkpoint, you'll be forced to pay a $45 non-reimbursable fee online just to kick off an alternative identity verification process. And here's the real kicker. That verification is not guaranteed. If they can't verify you through their alternative database checks, you are going to miss your flight. Honestly, just handling this upfront by getting your real ID now is vastly the smarter move. Now, as we wrap things up today, I do have to give you a quick professional reminder. Laws, municipal fees, and federal regulations can and do evolve over time. We've laid out the ultimate guide based on the current state protocols, but always verify the very latest requirements directly with the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security at tn.gov before you grab your paperwork and head out the door. So let me leave you with one final thought. In a world where federal security is only getting tighter, are you going to be the one breezing through the checkpoint with confidence or the one stuck at the gate sweating over a $45 penalty?
Navigating the Real ID process doesn't have to be confusing at all, as long as you have the right roadmap. Share this explainer with a friend or family member before they pack for their next big trip so they don't get caught off guard. Gather your documents, double-check those name bridges, and travel safely out there.